Hello there, welcome back to World of Warship Legends. I am Durka. Legendary tier ships currently mostly reside in the Bureau and can be researched, but as we all know, this can be rather time consuming. It would be good to know which legendary ship you want next, as it's a big decision that could take months for you to get that ship. Or, alternatively, it could be a very expensive global XP investment. Today I have broken down all of the current statistics of each legendary ship, as well as player evidence and my own experience to help you decide which legendary destroyer you should research next. Also, before starting, each ship is good in its own regard, and comparing them is at times like comparing apples to oranges. A lot of it is going to come down to playstyle and personal preference, such as if you enjoy gunboats or torpedo boats. Aside from that, let's get right to it. For simplicity's sake, let's divide these up into 5 main categories to see which one is best in each area. Survivability, gun damage, torpedo damage, concealment, and maneuverability. I think most of us would agree these are the basics of what makes a good destroyer a good destroyer. Survivability-wise, the Khabarovsk is going to be the most survivable destroyer in many different ways, starting with the highest HP pool at the tier. Couple this with a 50mm armor belt in places, and the option to trade out your smokescreens for heals that can bring back over 3,500 health apiece. It wins in this category handedly. The other destroyers have essentially the same armor scheme and no access to heals. Health points wise, Kleber would be second place, followed closely by the Gearing and then the Shimakaze. In this comparison, it is worth pointing out that the Shima would be the only ship here in this chart that does not have Sims as an inspiration, making the discrepancy between the health points look a little bit larger. So, survivability, Khabarovsk, easily. Number 2, gun damage. There are several things to consider here, to be fair. For simplicity, let's start with damage output. This is how much theoretical damage your guns could deal in 1 minute of shooting a target with full pins. No bounces, shatters, ricochets, fires, or anything else included. To balance this category, we took off inspirations that buffed reload and perks that reduced or increased shell damage, such as Rather Be Torchin, Playing with Fire, Mortar, so on and so forth. This is base DPM for each destroyer. Gearing wins by a good margin in this area with both shell types, followed by the Khabarovsk, the Kleber, and then, to no surprise, the Shimakaze. While Gearing has an immense DPM number, the fire chance of the HE shells are also something that can be considered. Now, mostly this is RNG, but I think it is something that you could think about. Kleber has the best fire chance, followed by the Khabarovsk, Shimakaze, and then the Gearing is in last place here. The other caveat that you could think about is the gun characteristics. Khabarovsk reigns supreme in this regard with being the most accurate. It has very fast shell velocity and flat firing arcs, whereas the Gearing has quite floaty shells that travel slowly in a very high arc to the target. Now, in the same breath, maybe Gearing is more suited to lobbing shells over an island if that need ever arose, but I'd say most of the time destroyers aren't sitting behind islands. If they are, you probably wish they weren't on your team. In addition, the Khabarovsk has the best base gun range, and that can be quite useful in outdistancing your opponents when the need arises. Overall, I'm going to split this category up in between the Gearing and the Khabarovsk, saying that the Russian destroyer would be better at longer to medium ranges, and the Gearing would be best suited in close engagements. In this same category, we could put anti-air, because technically the guns are often dual-purpose guns that do both. And Khabarovsk is number 1 here, followed closely by Gearing, with the Kleber and the Shimakaze lagging behind in this department. Torpedoes are the next category to rate these ships. In terms of pure damage, Shimakaze is going to have the biggest alpha strike with the most torpedoes and the highest damage per warhead, followed by the Kleber, Khabarovsk, and the Gearing in last place. Worth noting on Shimakaze here, we are not using the Type 93 torpedo mod that increases damage in range. That would bring the damage numbers up a little bit more at the cost of reload. Speaking of reload, torp reload speed, the Kleber is the best in class. Gearing is in last place. Torpedo range, just the opposite. Gearing is the best with 16.5 kilometer torpedoes, and Kleber and the Khabarovsk tie for last place with 6 kilometer torpedoes. Torpedo speed and concealment. The best way we could lump all this together is simply measure the reaction time that enemy captains will have to react to your torpedoes. And here, Khabarovsk is the best by a considerable margin. They are very, very stealthy torpedoes, and captains only have around 4 seconds to react. Kleber is the loser in this category at around 9 seconds reaction time. The torpedoes can be spotted from a very long distance away of 1.8 kilometers. Overall, the best torpedo armament would easily be the Shimakaze. With 15 of them and an incredible damage output, in combination with decent range and reload, it is the supreme torpedo boat. Number 4, Concealment. Concealment is very, very important for destroyers and what they do. For comparison, all of these ships have the Concealment mod installed. All commanders have Look at Me Now, as well as Eric Bay as an inspiration. Just for the comparison. When setting them up, we might set them up a little differently. Shimakaze is the winner here, with Kleber a close second, followed by Gearing, and the Khabarovsk is last in this category. Finally, maneuverability. Kleber is the speediest, with Khabarovsk a close second, and Gearing's going to come in last place in top speed here at about 36 knots. But when it comes to turning circles, it's the exact opposite. Gearing has the tightest turning circle, Khaba the worst. Not only that, the Khabarovsk has a terrible rudder shift of around 10 seconds. You are almost going to have to put points in your build here to reduce that and make it better. It is the Achilles heel of that boat. Shimakaze has a pretty good balance of all of it, but overall I would give Kleber the most maneuverable due to its high top speed, speed boosts, decent rudder shift that will help you dodge incoming fire, and the like. So these are the cold hard statistics, really objective information on how each ship does in each category. Next, my opinion. The controversial part. These destroyers are all very different, and it would be hard to say which one is the absolute best destroyer, because it's an unfair comparison at times. Really, you have small cruisers, Khabarovsk, mixed in with torpedo boats, Shimakaze, and normal destroyers like the Gearing. They're all very different, and they're very good at different things. For the best all-around destroyer that can do many different things well, but not great, Gearing should be your choice. It has a good mix of concealment, guns, firepower, useful torpedoes with the best range in the game, and is a great close quarters fighter for contesting caps and domination. Decent AA and the like, it's really the Swiss Army knife destroyers. The best overall gunboat is gonna go to the Khabarovsk. It's the toughest destroyer in game with 50mm armor, option for heals, and the largest health point pool. It excels at medium to long range hit and run tactics, and it has the best guns on a destroyer in the game. In a straight up fight against other DDs, it has a very, very high chance of winning. Shimakaze is the clear winner with playing a torpedo boat, set up with her great concealment and insane torpedo armament. Not only that, but it has options to change your playstyle with simply adding Type 93 torpedoes to extend your range and damage. The Cab and the Kleber torpedoes, they're very short range and they struggle with stealth torpedoing. And Kleber. Kleber is the most fun ship to play in the game. That is really my personal opinion, and I don't think it should be overlooked. It could be the most difficult destroyer to play given the lack of smoke screens, short torpedo range, and the tendency to outrun most of your team. Believe me, I do it all the time. But I think in the hands of a capable player, it could be the best ship, the best destroyer at Legendary tier for carrying. With its speed and concealment, you can be all around the map, helping your team out wherever you are needed. My personal pick is probably going to have to be the Khabarovsk. I typically enjoy gunboats more than torpedo boats, and the Cab is at the top of the food chain. It is just so hard to kill this thing when it's played correctly. It's fast enough to be all over the map, good AA, sneakiest torpedoes in the game, and the guns are just very, very good. I hate playing against the Khabarovsk, and that usually tells you everything you need to know about a ship. For new players, I would probably stick with gearing and Shimakaze, not to mention you should be grinding up the lines and learning the characteristics of each boat, and also learning at lower tiers where there is less on the line. More experienced players will dominate in the Khabarovsk and the Kleber. They are just very, very good if you know what you're doing. That is a wrap up of the legendary tier destroyers, and I am curious what each and every one of you think of the current L tier destroyers and how they rate against each other. Leave a comment down below, tell me what you think. With that, I would really appreciate if you liked the video and subbed to the channel, as it would help greatly as we close in on 2,000 subs. Alright, catch you in the next one. See ya.